Every once in a while, as a craftsman, you're able to build something that truly has a special meaning to it. That was the case with this particular project. This is a display case for a memorial flag, and I was deeply honored to be able to do this project. Stay tuned so you can see exactly how I did it, and if given the opportunity, I highly recommend you do the same. You're going to want to measure the actual flag that you're displaying because depending on how it's folded, there could be some variation in sizing, so you're going to want to do that first. It's an isosceles triangle, so two sides are equal. For wood selection, I chose the favorite woods of the person whose flag this represents. That's oak and cherry. So I used red oak for the main case and Brazilian cherry for the trim and for the inlay. Now, when I did the inlay this time, I did it a little bit differently. So normally, I would leave the inlay a little bit proud of my finished surface and then bring the inlay down to match. And it works, but sometimes I get a lot of gaps between the inlay and the wood itself. So to minimize that, what I tried doing was keeping the oak proud of the inlay, glued the inlay in, wasn't worried about getting glue everywhere, really secured it tight, and then brought the oak down to the inlay and then shaved everything down to my absolute finished surface. And that worked out really, really well. There's absolutely no gaps anywhere at all in that inlay. Now to cut the miters on the case, it can be a little complicated. You know, the top miter is going to be a 45, but these corner miters to the base of the triangle are going to be 22.5. And to cut it on a miter saw, you would have to create a temporary fence that would move the wood at a particular angle and then, you know, set your miter that way. What I did was I set my table saw to 22.5 and I used a tenon jig. It worked out really good, and it also allowed me to sneak up on it a little bit if I needed to, just by adjusting the position of the wood in that jig. Now for the trim, the top and bottom are completely different, but they do complement each other. The bottom trim was much easier. I cut a shoulder on the back of it so that it would sit proud on the oak, and then took a beading bit and cut that. And then on the front, that was a little bit more complicated. There's a rabbet cut on the back of it, and then an ogee on the side. The face has a little ball nose on it, and then on this edge there is a chamfer cut. And the one thing that I've learned over time is to always make a little bit extra trim when you're doing your project, just in case something happens. If you cut something short or you get a chip out or whatever the case may be, the last thing you want to do is have to go back and recreate trim to match everything else. It can be hard if you're just doing it on the fly, which is how I often do things. Now for finishing, I was a little worried. I knew I wanted to use Odie's oil on the finish itself, and honestly I was a little worried that it could stain the flag over time. So what I did was, the inside I used General Finishes Flat Out Flat, and just, you know, put that all on the inside, and then on the outside I used Odie's, and I think it looks great. over time you can just, add a little more oil to it and wax it up and shine it. And it'll last a long time. Now for the glass, two things. One, I would normally cut it myself, but I didn't have a piece of glass that big to begin with. So I just went to the glass store and had them actually cut the triangle for me. Now to secure the glass, I didn't want to trap it in the case. So I used the front molding to secure it from the front. And once I placed it, I used a little bit of hot glue around the edges and just locked it in. Works out great, and it'll allow that glass to shift around if it needs to.